9 Spine-chilling janitor encounters sinister secrets uncovered during haunted night shifts. Mark pushed open the heavy doors of Eastwood High School, a rumbling echo in the stillness. The fluorescent lights buzzed ominously, a monotone hum that matched his racing heart. He was just a janitor, a simple cleaner in a once thriving school now trapped in a web of neglect. But here, the shadows danced too close, the silence too heavy. He had heard the rumors from the townsfolk, tales of ghostly whispers and vanished children. Yet, as he mopped the deserted halls, he felt he was walking through a living nightmare. Late-night shifts had taken on a sinister air. Just last week, while tackling the grimy floors of the science lab, a door had creaked open on its own, sending a chill through him. Mark brushed it off as the wind, but his instincts screamed of something darker. The flickering lights above him cast wild shadows on the walls, twisting and turning as if eager to escape this trapped existence. And then, the messages started. His phone buzzed late at night, anonymous texts that sent ice through his veins. "You shouldn't be there," one read. "Secrets lie beneath the floors." Each alert was a nail in his sanity, hammering him deeper into a dread he couldn't shake. It was all connected to Mr. Adams, the beloved teacher with a past cloaked in whispers. How could a man so admired hold such darkness? Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system, and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Mark didn't want to believe it. But when he stumbled upon a hidden compartment beneath a classroom's floorboards, pulled by an almost magnetic urge, even he wondered what awaited him. Inside, dust collected on ancient yearbooks and a rusted box. His hands trembled as he pried it open. A musty smell flooded his senses, and out fell a crumpled photograph. Faces, children he didn't know, haunted eyes gazing back. Their sorrow pierced through him, heavy like a stone. Then the air shifted. Sound morphed from silence to desperate pleas, echoing off the walls like a warning. A cold breeze curled around him, darkness tightening its grip. "Leave now," a voice hissed, but he stood frozen, the urge to uncover the truth overpowering the fear clawing at his insides. Was it a trick of the mind or something much more sinister? As he stumbled toward the basement door, error gnawed at him. The vast emptiness below engulfed him, contrasting sharply with memories of laughter echoing through the halls. The lights flickered, but this time, shadows whispered in unison, "Mark, join us." Panic surged within him, every instinct screamed to turn back. But he couldn't. Not now, not when he was so close. The darkness swallowed him whole as he entered the basement. A wind howled, uprooting the last threads of normalcy. Just before he turned to flee, the phone lit up again. "You shouldn't have come here, Mark." The laughter swelled around him, faint and fractured but unmistakably laced with bitterness. Fear gripped him tighter, the realization that he had stumbled into horrors far beyond mere memories. What had he awakened? What truths lay hidden in the shadows? The basement's chill clawed at Mark's skin, every breath pulling in the foul, damp air. He felt like an intruder in someone's private hell, an unwelcome witness to tragedies long buried. The walls seemed to close in, whispering secrets in a language he didn't understand. Shadows moved and flickered, like living entities eager to share their stories, but they didn't want to be heard. They wanted to keep their curses hidden, and he was reminding them of their existence. Heart pounding, he scanned the cramped space, desperate for a sign, a flicker of hope in the clutches of despair. The concrete floor was slick underfoot, a reminder of all the past lives trodden upon, a graveyard of innocence lost. The whispers around him grew louder, a cacophony of children's voices interlacing, weaving a tapestry of fear and confusion. They pulled him in with urgency. Help us, stop!" He shouted into the void, the sound swallowed by the oppressive darkness. Each heartbeat felt like a drum summoning an unseen army. His phone lit up in his palm, the screen flashing with another ominous text, "It's too late for you, Mark." He felt the floor tremble beneath him, a slight vibration that raced up through his legs. Without thinking, he turned, seeking the faint sliver of light from the basement stairs. But the air around him thickened almost tangible. It was suffocating, and as he stumbled back, his foot caught on something, sending him crashing down. His hands scraped the cold floor, creating a trail of heat in the numbing cold, that when he noticed it the box, still ajar, as though it had been waiting for him to find it. The photo lay just beyond reach now, partially out of his grasp as if it were leading him into a more profound darkness. A fleeting thought crossed his mind, should he go back? In that moment, a name echoed loudly in his head like a bell tolling in a church of spirits. Adams. Suddenly, he heard a soft giggle, a ghostly sound not from the shadows but from behind him. He turned slowly, dread creeping into his bones. The hair on his neck stood on end. A figure, a child with hollow eyes and hair as disheveled as the darkness swallowed by the basement, stood before him. The spectral child looked up, seeking something from him: help. Comfort. A plea hung in the air, it was suffocating. Where is Mr. Adams? Mark managed to whisper, battling against the cold tightening in his chest. The child's smile widened, but it was vacant, devoid of warmth or safety. Below, came a singular word, smooth and chilling, each letter dripping with malice. Before Mark could utter another question, the child vanished, leaving him alone with his clamoring thoughts and shadows swirling like dark waters around him, and then, the laughter swelled again, echoing ominously, building in intensity until it crescendoed into a cacophony of screams. The walls shook, no longer mere structures but phantoms reflecting the terror of lost souls. Every child's wail struck like a knife, ripping through his sanity. In a blind panic, Mark dashed toward the staircase, unsteady and disoriented. He tripped over something soft, a body beneath the layers of dust, a doll, ragged and broken. He swept it aside, unwilling to engage with the remnants of anguish scattered about. He finally reached the stairs only to find the door slammed shut above him, laughter now resonating within the very wood itself. He pounded on the door, heart racing, screams rising in pitch and urgency. "Let me out!" he yelled, desperation clawing at him from within. But there was silence now, heavy and mocking. He turned back towards the blackness. Did he dare uncover the truth lurking in the shadows? Or was the truth already chasing him? As he fell to his knees, hands pressed against his ears to silence the haunting cries, a revelation struck. He had to know. He had to find out what bound those children to this forsaken place and if he would be the next to join them. Because once you know the truth, the whisper fluttered through the darkness again, you can never escape it. Mark's breath came in ragged gasps as the laughter morphed into guttural wails, a chorus of despair wrapping around him like a suffocating cloak. The shadows were alive now, dancing and twisting in grotesque formations at the edges of his vision. He could feel the presence of more than just the child. It was as if the entire basement were teeming with lost souls clawing at the fabric of reality, desperate for release. He rose shakily to his feet, swaying. His eyes darted around, searching for any exit, but the stairs loomed dauntingly out of reach. He felt the cold creep into his bones, and he shivered, for the whispers had changed. They were not just cries for help anymore, they were warnings. "Mark, don't stay!" The voices were layered now, a cacophony of fear woven into one breathless phrase. It felt as though the air was thickening with each word, a physical weight pressing against his chest. Sweat beaded on his forehead, the chill of the basement cutting deeper than just surface cold. With newfound resolve, he turned back to the box, the haunted relic that had pulled him into this nightmare. It beckoned him, its ajar lit a promise or perhaps a curse. What truth resided within? He gingerly approached, the floor beneath his feet crackling with tension. His fingers brushed against the box's rough edges, sweat mingling with the cold muck of the basement floor. As he finally leaned down to peer into the darkness within, a sudden blast of ice-cold wind howled through the space, rattling old pipes and rattling his bones. "Don't let them see you!" The voices cried now, frenzied and desperate. He recoiled, blood pounding in his ears, but something inside tugged him back. He needed to know. With shaking hands, he pulled the box fully open. Inside lay a jumble of items, old photographs, brittle and yellowed, a piece of broken glass that glinted menacingly in the fading light, and a rusted key, its metal spine twisted in the shape of something ominous. The air crackled again as he lifted the key, a jolt fraying the edges of his sanity. It felt wrong, like picking up a venomous snake coiling in his palm. He had no idea what it unlocked, but he sensed that it was crucial to uncovering the horrors of that basement and the fate of those children. Suddenly, silence fell. The chaos had retreated like the tide, leaving behind a heavy stillness. But it was not the calming kind. It was expectant, electric, awaiting his next move. Mark, the child's voice returned, soft but commanding. Come below. He hesitated, heart pounding wildly. What lay below? He could feel the darkness yielding, shifting with anticipation. Had those whispers just promised him secrets, or were they merely the tools of his demise? He heard a creak, shifting from behind him, a sound that rippled through the atmosphere with ominous purpose. The door at the top of the stairs had shifted just a crack, a sliver of faint light illuminating the edge of darkness. It was now or never. His instincts screamed for him to escape, to run back up the stairs, yet an insatiable curiosity rooted him to the spot. Could the key open a door to hidden horrors or truths? Would he be saving himself or sealing his fate forever? With a final, trembling breath, Mark plunged into the depths of uncertainty, clutching the key tightly as he whispered to himself the only question that mattered: what happens next? He took one step toward the unseen horror, a darkness thicker than the abyss ahead. With the key pulsating between his fingers, Mark took a tentative step deeper into the basement's oppressive gloom. Each heartbeat echoed like thunder in his chest, drowning out the echoing whispers that seemed to cling to him like the damp air. He could feel icy tendrils slithering through the shadows, wrapping around his legs, pleading him to stay. Mark, come closer. The child's voice threaded through the air, almost sweet, an invitation laced with danger. The dim light from the crack above flickered, threatening to extinguish completely, suffocated by the encroaching darkness. Every cautious move felt like a betrayal of the primal instinct to flee. He could almost see shapes shifting just out of reach, figments of his imagination or remnants of sorrow. The basement transformed into a mausoleum of fears, but he could not turn away now. The key trembled in his grasp, whispering secrets of its own. What ancient lock did it belong to? What forgotten door opened to shadows he couldn't yet comprehend? Mark's thoughts raced as he approached the far wall. It was an old brick structure, tired and chipped, like a sleepless old man bearing the weight of memories glued to its mortar. He could barely make out a faint outline, a doorframe concealed by years of neglect. He pressed his palm against the cold, damp stones. The whispers grew frenzied, a choir of voices rising in pitch, filling the air with a sense of urgency. It's there, Mark. Unlock it. Release us. Lifting the key, he squinted down at the rusted metal. Would it deliver freedom or unleash nightmares? Just as he resolved to try the key, a deafening crash echoed from the darkness, sending him stumbling back, the box clattering at his feet. Stop! He shouted, scanning for the source of the sound. The walls seemed to rid themselves of their stillness, vibrating with something sinister. The child's laughter mingled with the chaos, higher pitched and more menacing now. Mark, you shouldn't have come here. The laughter twisted, morphing into sharp, accusatory tones that ripped through his sanity. His skin prickled with dread as he fumbled for the key, scarcely able to think straight. He finally turned back to the door, breath hitching, heart racing. Desperation bubbled inside of him. He shoved the key into the lock, half expecting the door to explode open or to be met with an unyielding barrier. To his surprise, the key slid in smoothly, a stark contrast to the eerie atmosphere. With a deep breath, he twisted it slowly, the groan of the hinges sounded like a lament, echoing through the basement. As the door creaked open, a chilling draft rushed out, wrapping around him like a ghostly embrace. Trembling, he peered into the room beyond. It was a tiny chamber, lined with more boxes and old furniture draped in sheets, shadows clinging to every surface. But one object stood out, an old mirror, cracked and dusty, reflecting nothing but darkness. Abruptly, the whispers stopped. An unnerving silence enveloped him, its weight almost tangible. "Look inside," the child urged, excitement bubbling in its voice. Something in the reflection shimmered. Not his own face, but a swirl of silhouettes appeared, faces filled with panic and despair, trapped in the glass. Mark stumbled back, the horror of their expressions seizing his breath. The child's voice faded into a low chant, repeating, "Find me, Mark, find me." What was he meant to find? Who was trapped behind the veil of the mirror? Mark felt drawn toward it, unable to resist the pull of those eyes watching him, pleading for release. He stepped forward, his reflection shifting and swirling like smoke. As a shiver ran down his spine, the mirror shimmered again, this time distorting into an image that sent a jolt of fear through his veins. He gasped and stumbled back. Could he confront that which was hidden? The answer waited just beyond the surface, his pulse racing with anticipation and dread. What had he awakened? What lay behind the mirror that beckoned him so? Mark's breath quickened as he stumbled backward, knees nearly buckling beneath him. The chilling image in the mirror flickered, an anguished face staring back at him, eyes wide, mouth agape as if trying to scream but couldn't. He felt a surge of vertigo, the darkness around him pressing him closer, every corner of the basement seeming to thrum with anticipation. "Let me out! Let me out!" The voice was no longer the child's, it was more urgent, more desperate. It echoed as though it came from just beyond the glass, yet somehow also from inside his mind. The hairs on his arms stood on end, his instincts screaming to flee. But where could he go? Mark, the child's voice returned, dulcet and malicious, wrapping around him like a slithering serpent. "You have to help him. You promised." "Promised?" Mark whispered, the word tasting of ash on his tongue as he pressed himself against the wall for support. "I never promised anything." But the child's laughter danced through the basement, growing louder, swelling into something monstrous. "You did. Look at him. He's waiting for you." Mark's gaze snapped back to the mirror. The figure was now frantic, thrashing against something unseen, eyes pleading for someone to understand. Heart pounding like a war drum, he was drawn in. He could feel the pull like gravity, urging him closer, closer to the shimmering surface of the glass. Instinct screamed at him to resist, but with each second that ticked by, the faces in the reflection seemed to morph, to blend into one single, mournful entity, a being trapped within, crying for release. He lifted his hand to touch the mirror, skin tingling at the thought, fragile as gossamer threads weaving through a storm. "What will you do?" the child asked, its voice dark and taunting. "Are you brave enough to set them free?" With trembling fingers, he brushed against the cold surface. The moment he made contact, the world around him warped. Shadows surged around his legs, coiling and creeping, pulling him forward. The room bent and twisted, and he found himself immersed in the mirror's dark depth, his reflection dissolving into the swirling void. Screams erupted all around him, filling his ears as the cold surged through him. He was trapped no longer, Mark, but just a wisp of fear, merging with the cries of the figures that clawed at the glass. The weight of their despair pressed heavily, dragging him under. Something whispered secrets and terrors into his ear, notions that thrummed with understanding and yet drove him toward madness. In that deep, echoing void, he saw flashes of memories, snapshots of lives lived in agony, shadowed by the very thing that had kept them trapped. Each glance, each fleeting moment ignited a flicker of understanding. They had once been like him, whole, desperate to escape, yet tethered to the darkness by unseen strings of fate. "Find me," Mark the child dominated his thoughts once more, but the tone had shifted, now reflective of something darker, possessive, almost pleased. With sheer willpower, he tore his gaze away from the horror spiraling around him. He focused on the key, still clutched in his hand. It felt warm now, pulsing with an eerie light, begging to be used. "Unlock it." A chorus pleaded from the shadows. You must set us free. You must let us out. The choice loomed above him like a storm cloud, heavy and electric. He could either succumb to the delicious lure of the darkness or embrace the terrifying potential of freedom. Would he be the hero who faced the nightmare, or just another soul to be swallowed by its depths? Time slowed as Mark weighed the decision. The mirror shimmered, reflecting his absolute terror, and the truth of his worst fears waited just beyond the reflection. But he was tired of feeling trapped. He had to act. And then, as if the darkness itself anticipated his choice, the whisper swelled into a roar. What awaited on the other side when he turned the key? His heart raced as he prepared to snap his fate. Would it be a key to freedom or to a deeper nightmare? Mark felt a pulse race through him, a hard thud that echoed like a drum in the silence of the basement. The key glittered, vibrant and inviting, urging him to turn it. A deep breath swelled in his chest, preparing for his next move, but every bit of his being screamed in protest. Do it! The voices surged, drowning each other out in a cacophony of desperation. Set him free! He gripped the key tightly, knuckles turning white, and with a single, trembling motion, he thrust it into the lock of the mirror frame. Time ceased as the world held its breath. The metallic click resonated like gunfire in the stillness, sending waves rippling through the darkness. With a violent shudder, the mirror melted, its surface warping as though the very air around it had ignited. A charred landscape of autumn shadows spilled out, forming a maelstrom of twisted faces, a kaleidoscope of agony. Mark staggered back, hands flailing for support, and he raked his eyes across the scene manifesting before him. The air thickened with despair as the figures beckoned him with ghostly fingers, their mouths moving in silent howls. The child's laughter morphed into a frantic chant, sending chills crawling up his spine. Come to us! Come to us! They cried, their imploring eyes locked onto his. No! You're wrong! Mark shouted back, confusion filling his veins like ice. I'm not like you. But even as he said it, the pull intensified. The darkness wanted him. It craved his fear, his essence. He could feel its icy grasp tightening around his heart, strangling him with doubt. He couldn't let it win. No. He barked, forcing himself to take a step back. You think I'll save you? You're nothing but shadows. Each breath strained as he fought against their relentless allure. Desperation turned to anger, fueling a primal instinct to fight. Suddenly, the void around him split open, and he was sucked into the chaos. Colors flickered, ghostly shades of blues and grays swirling like a maelstrom, a storm of lost hopes and shattered dreams. Mark flailed, grappling with reality as it twisted around him. Save us! The voices wailed, rising to a fever pitch. You promised. Find him. Set him free. In that moment, he saw a glimpse of the child again, its dark form hovering, eyes bright with something more, a warped kind of hunger, a manic gleam that didn't belong to innocence. Was it really a child? The thought gnawed at him as more figures emerged from the fog, each more tortured than the last, that he channeled every ounce of his strength. You are nothing to me. He roared, the words ushering forth a bolt of clarity, piercing the sickening fog. A clear thought emerged: this was not about freedom, but manipulation. The figures did not wish for liberation, they sought to drag him down into their anguish. He struggled toward the mirror's edge, desperation clawing at his feet, the whispers rising and crashing like waves. You will not claim me. With one final surge, Mark wrenched himself back away from the collapse of the abyss. The mirror buckled, shattering into 1,000 shards that sparkled briefly, each reflecting a piece of the darkness. Before swirling into nothingness, panting, he stumbled back into the basement, heart racing as the world righted itself. The oppressive air thickened into silence once more, but the laughter persisted, echoing faintly in the distance. Mark, the child's voice called once more, softer now but edged with a sinister resolve. You can't escape forever. He staggered to his feet, breathless but alive. The mirror glimmered faintly, remnants of its shattered surface still lingering in the air. What had he unleashed? And was he truly free, or had he merely staved off the inevitable? Thus, a new thought nagged at him with icy fingers. What if the essence of the darkness still lay dormant, waiting to ensnare him when he least expected it? He wiped the sweat from his brow, looking around. The way out felt like a snare, daring him to tread back into the sunlight. But there was one more question waiting just beneath the surface: what if the child was more than a trap? What if it was a key to the very darkness he fought against? With the basement door looming ahead, Mark hesitated. Would he risk the unknown to dive deeper into this nightmare? The voices from the dark still echoed a haunting siren call wrapped in terror, and he realized the hunt had only just begun. Mark's breath hung heavy in the damp air, echoing in the silence like a drumbeat to a phantom melody. The basement door loomed before him, a portal he was terrified to cross. The laughter wafted back, hauntingly sweet, yet laced with malice. It blended seamlessly with his dread, creating a heavy fog that clawed at his resolve. What if I'm wrong? He whispered, though no one could hear. He turned, scrutinizing the blackness behind him. Shadows thickened, oozing like ink, squeezing the space around him. Had he truly banished the darkness, or merely delayed its inevitable grasp? Steps echoed from the door he had just escaped, a rhythmic clang that jerked him upright. He wasn't alone. The cold tendrils of fear wrapped around him, his heart raced. "Mark, come back," floated the child's voice, deceptively innocent and laced with an unnerving sincerity. It slithered through the air, wrapping around his mind like a serpent. He could almost see the child, a silhouette of innocence cloaked in shadows. "You should not have done that." The voice morphed, becoming deeper, more menacing. A shadow flickered, oscillating in the corner of his vision. He turned sharply, but nothing materialized. Just the remnants of the shattered mirror glimmered faintly, pieces still thrumming with energy, still pulsing with foreboding. Mark backed against the other side of the room, his breaths quickening. The shadows shifted around him, as if aware of his anxiety, bending to draw closer and closer. He needed to find a way to cleanse this place, to banish what lay hidden in the depths. "What do you want?" he shouted, anger spilling out, a desperate bid to wrestle control away from the darkness. The laughter restarted, echoing around him, shrill and maddened. Shadows turned into forms, darting just out of reach, slipping back into the darkness like a tide retreating behind a veil. "Help us!" The voices multiplied, layering over one another, blending into a macabre chorus. Mark squeezed his eyes shut, trying to shut out the sound, the echoes demanding his cooperation, his compliance. He could feel the weight of their stares, piercing him even in darkness. Suddenly, the walls began to pulse. The air grew thick as if sucked down into an unseen vortex. Mark, the child's voice intertwined with others, some cracking, some pleading. He recoiled as the air thickened with the scent of decay and despair, seeping into his nostrils like smoke drifting from an unseen fire. Uncertainty gnawed at him. "What do you want from me?" he yelled, frustration bubbling over. "You think I'll free you? You think I can save you?" But the response sent a chill cascading down his spine. "Free us or become one of us," his heart thundered, each beat echoing in the vacuum of the basement. He could feel dread seep into his bones. Were they offering salvation or dragging him to their doom? Out of nowhere, the corner of the room brightened, casting eerie shadows against the walls. One of the mirror shards flickered with energy, swirling and pulsing with the remnants of the dark magic. Mark hesitated, fighting against the images assaulting his mind, the tempting promises of freedom laced with treachery. He approached the shard, almost hypnotized. It radiated warmth, contrasting sharply with the cold dread surrounding him. If he shattered the piece further, what would he invoke? Would it truly destroy them or unleash something worse? A voice echoed, clearer now, darting through his thoughts. "Break it, Mark. Join us." With trembling hands, he reached out. Was he really willing to cross that line? Deceit and desire warred within him. Before he could pull back, the shard shattered beneath his fingertips with a sound like thunder, splintering the air as shards flew in a violent arc. Time seemed to slow as the pieces hung suspended in the air. Shadows recoiled, and a piercing scream erupted from the encroaching darkness, reverberating against the broken silence of the basement. "What have you done?" The chorus shrieked as light burst forth from within, igniting the shadows, revealing the horrors they concealed. Mark gasped as memories his own, their own flooded into him, a torrent of anguish and desperation. It flickered in and out, melding the past into his very essence. He staggered back, all thoughts of escape gone, as something began to emerge from the depths of the darkness, something vast and terrible, and in that moment, he understood, this fight was only beginning. But the greatest horror was yet to come. The room twisted, contorting as blinding light surged from the shards. Mark shielded his eyes, feeling the heat wash over him while the dark shadows screamed, retreating like frightened animals. In that moment, clarity cut through the chaos. Shapes rose from the torn darkness, formless at first, but quickly taking form, twisted reminders of lost souls, eyes wide and hollow. Wails filled the air, weaving through Mark's thoughts, leaving him gasping for breath. They weren't just shadows, they were the remnants of people who had faced the same choice, offering hope at a cost that none could afford. "Join us," they whispered, voices merging into a single, dreadful sigh. Their forms shifted and writhed, delicate yet threatening, caught in the liminal space between existence and oblivion. "Is this what you wanted?" Mark shouted, anger now raw and potent, the lingering fear igniting an unexpected fire within him. "To drag me down with you?" The laughter returned, like a haunting lullaby, drawing him in, holding tight. It echoed through the room, morphing into a sinister chant that wrapped around him like a vice. For every scream, there was a smile, a twisted joy in the horror that sought to consume him. "No!" Mark cried out, pressing his palms against his ears, desperate for silence. But the cacophony only grew louder, drowning his pleas. He stumbled backward, lost in a seething nightmare of faces writhing in despair. Suddenly, a figure stepped forward from the throng, the child. Eyes like bottomless wells, it peered at him, a mixture of innocence and malevolence carving out a space in the endless dark. "You can free us," it called, the words drenched in honeyed malice, "if you only embrace the darkness." Mark felt a shudder ripple through him, freezing the blood in his veins. Could he truly be the one to wield such power? The thought clawed at his consciousness, promising relief from the torment while seducing with a sense of belonging. "No!" He bellowed again, heart pounding like a war drum. He gritted his teeth, forcing his gaze away from the child, rising against the dreadful pull. That voice, so innocent, yet he could feel the weight of the darkness behind it, packed with betrayal. He needed to reclaim control. Drawing in a deep breath, Mark reached for the remains of the mirror, the fractured shards still radiating with potent energy. The warmth enveloped his fingers, fueling his defiance. "Not today." He spat, with newfound resolve, he thrust the shimmering piece towards the darkness. "You want freedom? You want release?" His voice trembled, but he stood firm. "Then take it from within." The shards emitted blinding light, a moment of clarity amidst the chaos. The throng of shadows shrieked, the walls of the basement vibrating with their anguish. A wave of energy burst forward, slicing through the echoing cries. Mark's heart raced as he felt a shift in the air, an unseen force struggling against his will. It was then he realized the darkness had teeth, sharp and eager, gnashing at the light spilling forth. He was engaged in a fierce battle, not just for his life, but for the remnants of souls twisted within their own despair. The child wailed, eyes filling with fury as it lunged forward, but Mark countered, flinging the mirror's shard deeper into the dark heart of the basement. "Be gone!" he shouted, the sound reverberating off the walls. The light pulsated, overwhelming him with warmth. As it expanded, shadows writhed and spiraled, faces melting into expressions of anguish, a momentary glimpse of the life they once had before surrendering to the void. Yet, the darkness screamed back, a vortex of rage and hopelessness clawing at him. "You can't do this. You will never be free." But just as victory appeared within his grasp, a chilling whisper echoed through the basement, slicing through the terror. When one door closes, another opens. The shadows stilled, and a new shift rippled through Mark. It felt like a ripple of ice skating through his veins, a deeper darkness awakening beyond the realm he had uncovered. He looked down, glancing at the shards still glowing ominously in his hands, realization dawning with a sickening twist: this wasn't an end. Something larger was awakening. Mark, the child's voice, now distant but resonant, echoed in his mind. "You're just getting started." Panic surged within him as Mark turned to face the door he had thought shut for good, crackling with dark energy. Would he walk through it, or would he remain to face whatever foul renewal awaited him? And as the reflections danced before him, the next choice loomed heavily in the air: plunge deeper into the shadows or take a stand against the darkness. The basement had opened a new terror, and it demanded attention. Mark's breath hitched as he stared at the door, its jagged edges pulsing with a life of their own. Whispers swept around him again, brushing against his skin like icy fingers, leaving trails of dread in their wake. "The door, it calls to you," the child's voice taunted, threaded with menace. His heart raced. It felt like the entire basement echoed his turmoil, each corner vibrating with taunts and predictions. He could feel his grip on the shards tightening as they warmed in response to his rising fear. Just a step the child persisted, its form flickering in and out of focus, darkening the very shadows Mark had fought. "You deserve to know what lies beyond." The energy crackled around him, swirling like a tempestuous storm, threatening to drag him into its depths. The walls, once solid and unyielding, felt like they were closing in, eager to ensnare him within their grasp. But as the darkness pressed against him, Mark sensed a flicker of light within himself. "I want to be like you," he shouted into the swirling void, his voice breaking the overwhelming rush of noise that sought to bind him. He thrust the shard forward, feeling its power, desperate to pull back the veil of despair that lay beyond the door. A sudden hush fell over the basement. The shadows paused, their spiteful forms wavering like candle flames in the wind. It was a moment of vulnerability, a fleeting chance to see beyond the chaos. Mark's pulse quickened. "What's behind you?" he thought, torn between the need for answers and the gut-wrenching fear of what he might find. Just then, the door quaked, and with a jarring crack, it swung outward. Mark's breath caught as he peered into the inky blackness beyond. A gaping maw of uncertainty loomed, sucking him closer, promising revelations cloaked in horror. A pointed voice broke through, compelling yet tainted. "Embrace your past. Only then can you find the truth." Images flooded his mind, the faces of those who vanished long ago, relatives, friends, all wrapped in the embrace of shadows. He could almost hear their cries, the pleading echoes of despair mixed with harmony only darkness could conjure. Mark teetered on the edge of madness as he stepped forward, drawn by something he couldn't fully understand. A surge of need overcame him, it felt like a gravitational pull towards the abyss. "I have to know," he whispered, trembling, "I have to understand." As he crossed the threshold, an icy grip clasped around his ankle, pulling him back, urging him to retreat. The child's gaze shifted, a mixture of longing and triumph. "You can't resist. You're bound to us now." Panic surged through him, and he gasped. "No." He fought against the pull, the shadows digging into his psyche, threatening to dissolve his very essence. But in that fight, Mark found clarity. A surge of determination washed over him. He gripped the shards tighter, feeling the pulse of light within them. It was a beacon in this sea of despair. "I will not be a part of your darkness," he yelled, pulling away with all his might. The shadows writhed, hissing and clawing, but he held firm, his soul ignited with fierce defiance. "I will break this curse," he declared, launching the shard ahead into the void. As it entered the darkness, the room erupted into chaos. A cacophony of shrieks filled the air as the shadows recoiled. Mark could feel the energy shift, a new force awakening, swirling around him, blurring the lines between light and dark. But then from within the swirling mass, a bony hand burst forth, long and twisted, grasping for him with relentless fervor. In that moment, he understood the truth: fleeing was not enough. He must face whatever was waiting in that dark expanse, but would he emerge whole or lost forever? Mark stood frozen, heart pounding, senses on high alert. As the shadow extended its skeletal fingers toward him, he was left with a terrifying realization: the deeper he delved into the darkness, the more impossible it became to turn back. The question loomed heavily now: would he confront the shadows head-on, or would he succumb to their cold embrace? And with that thought swirling in his mind, the basement held its breath, waiting for his next move. Mark's heart raced as he tightened his grip on the shard of the mirror, feeling the heat pulsating through him. The air crackled with a charged energy, and as the skeletal hand edged closer, he understood he had but one choice: he would not become another lost soul in the basement's grasp. "Get away from me!" he shouted, his voice reverberating in the oppressive silence. He thrust the shard forward, its blinding light illuminating the chamber and dispelling some of the darkness. The skeletal hand recoiled, hissing as shadows seethed and twisted, desperate to reclaim the light. "Embrace us, Mark!" the child echoed, its voice sweet and sultry. It seemed to hover on the edge of the shadows, a grotesque specter of innocence and malice. But he felt their grips loosening. They fed on his fear, and now, armed with fierce determination, he fought back with every ounce of strength. "No! I will not let you drown me!" He surged forward, the shard glowing brighter as he advanced. He remembered the faces in the mirror, a jumbled mass of sorrow and pain that reflected his own struggles. One by one, their whispers became clear: "Help us, do not abandon us." That single phrase pierced through the chaos. They didn't desire to take him, they needed him to guide them. Mark tilted his head, realization dawning deep within him. "I see you!" he exclaimed, tears spilling down his cheeks. "I'll help you find peace." With renewed conviction, he pressed on towards the heart of the darkness, where the shadows writhed like vipers yearning for their next fix. "You're free!" he yelled, thrusting the shard toward the darkest corner of the basement as he felt a burning desire to pull them towards the light. "Break your chains!" The basement trembled, the light expanding and pushing back against the encroaching shadows. The cacophony of overlapping cries turned to harmony, sorrow dissipating into gratitude. Faces came into focus, each one a whisper of relief bridging the gap between life and death. "Thank you!" they sang, voices intertwining in beautiful resonance. And just like that, the shadows began to pulsate, an aura of radiant light engulfing the basement, washing away layers of despair. Skeletal hands receded, and figures started to dissolve into shimmering dust, set free from the chains of the darkness binding them. Mark urged them on, his heart swelling with hope. "You're close. Don't give in now." The child lingered for a moment longer, seemingly torn, but then turned, joining the spirits embracing the light. "You helped us," it whispered, genuine for the first time. "Thank you." A blinding flash flooded the basement, and for a heartbeat, everything froze. The oppressive weight of despair lifted, the air became fragrant with newness as it filled with warmth. Mark felt a sharp pang in his chest as the shards of the mirror dissolved into scattered sparkles, their essence merging with the spirits, an ethereal explosion of color and light. The basement began to shift, disassembling the confinement that had held him in perpetual fear. With a final gasp of life, he felt warmth envelop him, sharing whispers of closure. Laughter warred joyfully with insistence in the background, reverberating against the walls, washing over him like a soothing tide. "I'm free," he breathed, marveling at the faint, persistent glow of light revealing the exit. The door he once feared now stood wide open, inviting him toward the safety of the outside world. With cautious steps, he approached the threshold. The laughter faded into the ether, the child's voice now only a memory warmed by gratitude. The basement had transformed into a sanctuary of release, every shadow finally banished, every lost soul soothed. As he crossed out of the darkness and into the moonlit night, Mark's heart swelled with a sense of triumph he'd never known. He turned once more, looking back. The air vibrated with a ceaseless yet calming presence, a reminder that he hadn't just saved himself but had freed them all. With renewed life pulsing through him, he whispered, "Goodbye," and stepped forward into the night. The door gently sealed behind him, a signal that it was finally over. But as he walked away, carrying the warmth of hope in his heart, a shadow flickered just beyond the periphery of his vision. It dissipated quickly, but the echo of the child's laughter lingered, a promise that the fight within couldn't truly ever end. So here's the thing: you need to subscribe now if you want to follow Mark's journey deeper into this uncharted territory. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm and share your love for stories that chill the bone. Flood that comment section with your reactions and theories about what comes next. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to witness this haunting conclusion. Only true fans understand the importance of supporting the channel through these actions.